Hey guys, Matt from That Car Channel here. I just want to have a quick chat about horsepower and Volkswagens. Now, one of my favourite channels to watch is Mighty Car Mods. I'm sure a lot of my guys watch Mighty Car Mods and the Skid Factory and those other channels. Benny's Custom Works is a new one as well. That they've had a bit of a Volkswagen build up at the moment with Marty's Evo and Moog's Volkswagen Golf R. So the first episode was an outline of what we want to achieve, which was we want a supercar killer 500 horsepower Golf. And I thought to myself, what? Like, there's heaps of 500 brake horsepower Golf R's getting around on the internet. Being in Australia though, I thought, well, I wonder if he means 500 horsepower at all four wheels. Like, that would be nuts. That's like 600 plus at the engine, because in the Euro world, everyone talks about brake horsepower. So even here in Australia, you go, yep, I've got a Golf. It's got a stage 17, whatever that means, and I've got 600 horsepower. And you think, okay, where are we measuring that from? Is it the Volkswagen DIN 70020 rating, or is it JIS 607, or all those other measurements? So there's a bit of confusion about what that actually means. So I want to make a quick video because I've got 295 horsepower apparently, or when it was new, in the R36, which was 300 PS, which is the German version of horsepower, I guess, or 220 kilowatts, right? The new Golf R's, Mark 7 Golf R, makes 220 kilowatts, 221 kilowatts, next to no difference, or about 300 PS. They put theirs on the dyno and made 180 kilowatts at the wheels, or about 240 horsepower at all four wheels. Now, I've seen a couple of different Golf R's in Australia on different dynos. They're all around that 160 to 180 kilowatts at the wheels. So depending on what dyno it is, what the ambient temperatures are, what day of the week it is, what dyno it is, who's operating it, what mode it's in, there are a number of factors, but around that is the given power, right? So if you want to do a true comparison, you want to take it back to the same dyno in relatively short amount of time, so the climate doesn't change, things like that, and you have the same operator do the same test again. So that's probably the best way to do it. A lot of people go between dyno shops and this and that. I don't know, it can be a bit misleading, but anyway, 240 horsepower at all four wheels, or 180 kilowatts is what they had, after the basic stuff that all the Japanese guys do: turbo, intercooler, intake, exhaust, boost, add fuel, raise the boost, and you make, I was expecting more. I mean, it's only tuned on 98. It made an extra, 200 horsepower, if that calculation is right. So they made 172 all-wheel horsepower from 240, so up an extra 132 horsepower at all four wheels. Don't get me wrong, 370 horsepower at all four wheels is stout. That makes a little Golf, especially with that DQ500 with the launch control and the lightning fast shifting, that makes it crazy to drive. And the amount of torque that it has, because of the gearing and just the way that European cars are made, it's about how they deliver that power. It's a bit different to tuning a Japanese car. Making 200 extra horsepower out of a JZ or an RB, you don't even think twice. You're like, I don't know, just run a couple extra pound of boost and maybe swap the turbo with a slightly bigger one, or just bolt on something massive. I thought that was a wasp. Allergic to them. And you don't even think twice. 600-700 horsepower at the wheels with a 2J or even a 1J, 600 horsepower, not even breaking a sweat. You're running lots of boost and E85, but that's wheel horsepower we're talking there, not engine horsepower or brake horsepower. So I guess I just wanted to point out there's some differences there, because everyone was, I don't know, there was some comments in that section that I saw, and just general feedback around the guys that I talked to and everything like that, where they're going, I thought they were going to make 500 horsepower out of this Golf. And I said, well, they did, but they only mentioned the 500 horsepower at the start in the video, in video 1. They mentioned it a few times, and then everything else was mentioned at the wheels. So, you know, you probably lost, I don't know how many percent it would be, but the DQ500, you don't lose as much power through the drivetrain through the DQ500 as you do with the DQ250, which is in my box, which is in my my wagon. They're essentially a manual gearbox anyway. There's clutches, they're a direct drive type of gearbox, but it's automatically controlled. I don't need to go into the DSG functions with you, so you're not going to gain any more power by having a true H pattern manual versus one of these DSG type gearboxes. They have the same loss, whereas a typical older automatic transmission, like in my old Lexus, for example, has a stall converter, which is a fluid coupling that you do lose some power at the cost of torque amplification. There's a raft of other things around there, but my my R36, for example, usually gets around 200 horsepower at all four wheels. And the Golf, like I said, you usually get around that 200, 210, 200, and these guys made 240 at all four wheels standard. So from something that's supposed to make 300 PS or 295 horsepower in both instances, obviously mine's a lot older, being 10 years old this year, versus the Golf R, which was, I'm not sure which one which one's Moog's is, but I think it's maybe a couple of years old, 5 years old, I think, but it is the newer DQ500 box. So that, a different dyno, is probably why it made more horsepower standard. But I guess the main reason for me making this video was just to outline a few of those issues with talking about European cars. Doesn't matter where you are, it just seems to be the way, like everyone talks in stages. I've done stage 1. Cool, what does that mean? Stage 2, you know, you don't talk like that in Japanese cars. This is a different video to get into, but it's like horsepower. You're measuring horsepower. Me, personally, or my group of friends and all of the guys that I talk to in the car community in Australia typically refer to power delivered at the wheels. So, you know, made 300 rear wheel horsepower. Sweet. You know, that's probably about, I don't know, 380, 400 maybe, depending what sort of drivetrain it is at the engine, or higher if it's a four-wheel drive car, and you think, that's making some pretty big power, you know, because you always see factory power delivered at the engine. So, I don't know, it's hard to gauge what people are always talking about. So I just wanted to make a quick video just to clear that up. It's probably a little bit rambling now that I'm 8 minutes through, but yeah, brake horsepower, all-wheel horsepower, kilowatts, PS, how it's measured, different dynos. Look, it all makes sense when you're talking about the same thing. When you start mixing them up, talking about, I'm making 500 horsepower, and then you go and make 370 all-wheel horsepower, and that's the figure, and you think, what? 500 must have been at the engine, so now it makes sense. So I guess that's where I'm coming from this video, guys. Just keep it consistent. If you're talking about engine horsepower, wheel horsepower, four-wheel drive, two-wheel drive, that sort of thing, it's a lot easier to understand for everyone else. So anyway, thanks for watching this far in. I've probably lost many of you along the way, but if you have made it this far in, thanks very much, and we'll see you guys next time.